Hey, and we're back, everyone. Hello, and thank you for checking us out. We have with us Fallon Wilson. Fallon is going to be talking to us about cultivating the workforce of the future, refocusing education. And before I go into Fallon's bio, I think it would be better served for her to tell you what she does because she got like 4 or 5 different slashes, and I don't want to mess it up.
I appreciate that, Dennis, because, I am a Jill of many trades. So I appreciate this. First and foremost, thank you so much for having me. I'm such a church girl. You got to give thanks to like Greg and to Dennis and the amazing team at BIT for really doing an amazing conference that centers Black genius. So thank you for having me. I wear 3 hats. Nationally, I am the Vice President of Policy of Tech Policy at the Multicultural Media, Telecom, and Internet Council. It is a legacy organization that has served people of color for the last 35 years and made sure that telecommunications, cable companies, broadcasters, internet is equitable for Black and brown people at the national level. They are the equivalent of the NAACP in the Urban League when it comes to tech innovation and policy at the national level. At the local level, at the state level, I am the co-founder of Black Tech Futures Research Institute, where I work with 4 different states and cities on building thriving Black tech ecosystems using our Black Tech Ecosystem Index and working with on-the-ground Black tech ecosystem builders and policymakers to really take the research and the data and inform how municipalities and states really should think about an inclusive Black innovation economy. At the local level, at the municipal level, I am the co-director of the Nashville Digital Inclusion and Access Task Force, meaning I push our mayor, our chamber to ensure that broadband access is equitable, often for communities of color who don't have access. I know most of the BIT conversation we're going to have is on like the output of the tech pipeline, but for us to have a continuous and prosperous pipeline, we have to think about the beginnings of it, and everyone should have access to high-speed broadband to level the playing field. And so I go between those 3 hats most days, and the common strand that goes through each of them is policy. When I say policy, I'm always talking about billions and millions of dollars that are being negotiated, oftentimes without Black people. So that's who I am.
Interesting. Now, there's a lot to unpack in just your intro. So what I'm going to say, and it could go a lot of different ways, but what are you working on now? What's of import? Obviously your background is varied, but of those 3 hats, which is the biggest hat that you're wearing right now?
Privilege allows certain people not to have multiple vocations and multiple community service activities. But often as Black and brown people, we don't get the leisure of just choosing one social issue to address and to make better for our community, right? And so probably the most profound work I've just completed was working with African-American churches and African-American church leaders and organizations across the country to talk about the need to apply for the emergency broadband benefit. Once again, you can't have people working for tech companies if at least 30% of Black people lack access to the internet. Can't have computer science courses and trainings when so many of our community members don't have the internet. And so that's probably the most profound work I've been working on, because it allows me to translate internet, broadband, and even some conversations about media disinformation and biased algorithms to the mothers of the church who would be like, Fallon, what is a biased algorithm? Why are you talking about deep fake? And I'd be like, it is not a Michael Kors bag knockoff that you got, right? It's not that, but it's like you may take millions of your images and they can put them together and it can look just like you. And why should you be concerned about that? And what is the technical aspects behind that type of thing? And beginning to open the door so that I love BIT and I love all of you amazing technologists who are listening and watching, but we have not done well with translating this world for people who are not in STEM and tech. And so probably that's my most exciting work that I've got to do and continue to do in this space at this moment.
Yeah, no, that is so important. And You said deep fake. I was trying to explain to my mother the same thing. It's not easy to explain to people who don't live in this world. But with respect to the broadband piece, and you said emergency. What was it called? The emergency.
It's called the emergency broadband benefit. It is the first time that, well, not the first time. Just say the pandemic made the digital divide real for many people across this country, even though many of us have been doing the work for a while. And Congress said last year, we want to figure out how to address this. And so they appropriated $3.2 billion. And anyone who needs internet in this country, and if you fall within the categories of those who are often in need, can apply for a $50 subsidy to get the internet. And also up to $100 toward a laptop or a device, which is really amazing. Why? Because yet again, you can't, we're going to get to the whole pipeline piece. We're going to talk about tech companies. It's going to be a great conversation, but I often have to push back against industry and against some of our amazing stakeholders in this space to say, yet again, we lost 13 million children, Black children, Latino children, because they didn't get access to the internet. We didn't know what happened after the pandemic, right? The learning loss and our public schools doing all the great work to try to catch up. Even now, as they do hybrid models, depending if there's an outbreak, they have to go back online to learn. And I'm not even just talking about technical skills, just reading, just writing, basic types of foundational things that we need. And so the notion that our government now sees it as an issue and is willing to put money behind it is amazing. And we get subsidies for all types of things. We have subsidies to go to college, that's a Pell Grant. You get subsidies for your home, first-time owner. Subsidies help equalize and level some of the playing field that racism, right, has really structured for us. And so, I can run this policy game with you all day.
Well, it's interesting you say that because, I'm thinking of the Build Back Better plan and, things on the infrastructure bill that Biden's trying to propose. Do you know, or do you have any insight into what that looks like from a internet infrastructure and, internet equity standpoint?
I love that you are adding all these additional questions that are
I'm sorry. I'm going to get to those questions too. But this is a conversation I want to have.
I am improvisational. That is this experience, the lived experience of Black people. We have to improvise. I'm going to answer that question and I'm going to tie it into another one. The infrastructure bill and the amazing debates that are happening is all about, in my opinion, what do we value? Policy for me is always about billions of dollars. Yes, you can write the policy, but it's about who gets it, how they get it, and when they get it. And so when we're looking at an infrastructure bill that says that not only are we're going to extend the emergency broadband benefit, it's going to be called the Affordable Connectivity, right? Broadband, even though I just hate that they use broadband because everyday people are like, what is that? And I have to say it is the internet, right? And they're going to also extend digital equity dollars. What I love about that is that it gives the opportunity to level the playing field in states. States will get these big $1 million grants to talk about equity in technology. This is where BIT could come in, right? Because they have to create a plan for how they're going to address equity in the digital inclusion and access tech space. And I worry if we don't have people and organizations like BIT and others to really get on these broadband task force or work with the state at this level, that our communities, often in unserved communities, often in underserved communities, won't be able to get access not only to internet, that's great, but to devices and to tech trainings. And so when I'm looking at I'm like, pass it, because I'm like, we're about to get in, we're about to level the playing field for Black and brown people in this country. We need all the social packages too. Those things are essential. Let me talk about the number of Black women who probably were in tech also, who had to nurse and do domestic labor last year and also be able to work from home, and how the number of Black women scientists couldn't publish because they had to do domestic care, right? Mm-hmm. And so having additional dollars toward leave and supporting Black women equity in that space, all those things matter. But for the most part, as it relates to technical skills, it is in that infrastructure bill. It is the ability to build fiber. It is there's so much opportunity for Black businesses and those who are working on tech skills and apprenticeship skills for Black people in this country.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say this because I'm going to work this in, because the question was supposed to be, what is the one policy, Dr. Wilson, that you would like to see implemented? Yes.
Yeah. So if I may, and it does tie into this question, by the way, is at the high school level, and you mentioned training programs. I know because I went to a school that had a VOTEC program, and my degree is actually in technology education. So I knew
we got to commute on some other things then.
So I'm thinking that high school is an opportune place to start a technical, I guess resurgence, for VOTEC, because right now it's still, focused around, auto mechanics and plumbing and, carpentry, and that's not really going to cut it for the future. So
I would tell a funny story, and I don't care if anyone listens. Sometimes you have to be real and true, because you think we make these stories up. I do a lot of work in the state of Tennessee, and I get to work with amazing partners. And I think you had Emeka from Code Crew. I think he's a speaker at one of these sessions. Anyway, Code Crew does amazing work with doing coding and skill development certifications in Memphis. Memphis is one of our largest Black cities in the country, right? But yet it has some of the highest levels of poverty for Black people, just given the background. But the amazing work that Emeka had to do with our state to say, hey, we want computer science for all. And the discussions with our predominantly Republican assembly was, why do they need computer science training in our high schools, in our public high schools? Don't they have CTEs, which is career technical education, which you just outlined? And so there's like an education piece we have to do with state officials so that they know that auto mechanics does not give you the ability to code a program, right? And so they were conflating the two, and it became a whole thing. But Mecca, bless his heart, stayed with them and tried to help them push to understand the difference. And so when I talk about leveling the playing field, especially in public high schools or just in public school education in general, because I think we could begin teaching script and coding before high school. Congressman Barbara Lee, who's an amazing, bad race woman like Mary McLeod Bethune, she has introduced and continues to introduce since 2017, computer science for all. That would require every state in this country to make it mandatory that there's a computer science course in every public high school. The issue, do you not understand? It is like salve for some of the digital inequities that we have, right? And so for me, it levels the playing field, but we can't get it. And what happens then is that if we struggle to find teachers for public education, it is very hard to get amazing people like you and others who are in technical spaces to go teach at a high school for 40 or 50%, 80% lower than what your current rate in private industry is. And so we may have a coding course here or maybe an after-school curriculum there, but it's not institutionalized. And when it's not institutionalized, we can't measure it, and we can't hold those who are accountable, right, at the state level for like these types of standards, accountable for how they treat Black and Latino children in these spaces primarily, and our immigrant and refugee families as well. And so for me, that is the outside of giving like broadband access to every person. That's the first one, and we can easily solve that. Let me just say, for the last 20 years, people have been talking about the digital divide. Oh my God, we can't do it. Oh, it's so much. But in a matter of a year, we have figured out how to do it. And so the issue is never about, can we do it? It's about the will to do so, because the dollars are there. We have them now. And so it goes back to value proposition. And so that would be the push. And I think if we can get BIT connected to policy realm and connected to amazing folks like Congresswoman Barbara Lee and others who are really pushing these innovative technical policies that really can push people of color and BIPOC people forward, we can really make some headway here. I'm hopeful.
Yeah, and that's at the high school level specifically, but there are a lot of HBCUs that don't have computer science programs, and it's a challenge there as well.
Don't you be talking about my HBCUs?
Well, not all, but it's true. It is true. It's a fact. there's a lot of that don't have computer science programs.
You know, you're gonna want relationships with UNCF and I'm joking. I'm messing with you. I'm joking. I mean, okay, touche to that point. However, let's also begin at the beginning before I get there. Even though HBCUs, you know, nationally take in about 8% of Black students, right? And they also, let's be clear, I'm a graduate of Spelman College. Yes, you can all silently clap. I have disdain for me. I don't care. But we are more likely to enroll first generation Black college students who need a lot of social supports to help them excel. I was that. I came from a poor working class home. I was valedictorian in my senior class, though.
I don't doubt that.
I mean, we were poor. You know, we were working poor. But yet I still needed. I could not have gone and gotten my PhD from the University of Chicago and all these other things if I had not had an experience at Spelman that taught me everything about being an audacious Black woman, right? And the history behind it and why we should lead, right? And so, you know, Gallup poll did an amazing study about 4 years ago, where they looked at those who went to PWIs and those who went to HBCUs. Though those who went to PWIs may have more economic mobility, the level of satisfaction, the level of locus of control, the level of esteem and its centeredness came from those who actually went to HBCUs. And so before we bash them,
no bashing.
Not bash them. Before we talk about what they don't have, we have to talk about what they have provided. They were the only space at one point where we could go after this, you know, because the Civil War was real, right? Where we could go and have identity, and all of our scientists and thinkers before Brown versus Board came from that space. And they also still, outside of computer science, produce the largest number of STEM graduates that actually go on to get their doctorates. And so we have the history and the mechanisms for doing so. But I think part of the challenge with working with our amazing, venerable institutions is that we as outsiders, even though Fallon's not an outsider, because I work with all of them in many different ways and also went to one, we don't know how to build trust and how to have mercy, right? For how to engage them in these spaces. And I think we have to always be conscious of their levels of endowment. And once again, they're taking students that a predominantly white institution are not likely to enroll, and saying that out of this sow's ear, I can make a pearl. Out of this, and so as it relates to computer science, let's be clear. Once again, if we can get dollars toward broadband, dollars toward Barbara Lee's Act, and also really push Biden to really live true to what he said about them dollars when he was running for election, we really can open the door to have conversations with our HBCUs about this, working in partnerships on National Science Foundation's grants, because there's a lot of federal dollars there, right, to help them move in that direction. It's like pushing your mama to do something she doesn't want to do, even though she knows she should, but you have to have patience in that process and know that she's valuable. And I don't think sometimes, even we as Black people, we get frustrated. We're like, we ain't doing this. I tried. But they are what I consider to be tech anchor institutions in our larger Black tech ecosystem that we can't move forward, and you can't have a sustainable bid. I'm just gonna put that out there without engaging them.
I love that context, and it makes total sense. And as we're working up the, I guess, matriculation ladder, once we get to the point where folks are, you know, past school, you know, either post-secondary or maybe they didn't go to college and they need to be reskilled or retrained. You know, what are your thoughts on that as far as the current state of employment, you know, retraining, how to get more people into tech, which is our primary mission? What's your perspective?
See, this is part of it, right? We know, and you well know because you work with so many of them, that we expect science and technology and innovation industries to grow by 22% by 2029, right? We also know that it's changing the global economy, how we live, how we think, all of those amazing things, right? But we also realize that, you know, there's some challenges there, right? And for me, I've worked with so many tech companies to try to help them understand retention and attrition rates, and to help them think about the types of internal ERGs and commitments to diversity and all the measures that you check off a box that lets you know your company, your tech space is inclusive for Black and Black people and Black women. Yes. And I think many can check off boxes in the prescriptions that we have given, but yet we look at Facebook or at others and they go from 5% maybe to 7% over the last 6 years. And you say to yourself, all the box checking that we're doing, all of the consultants you're working with, all of your diversity initiatives, even the work that Google did with Howard University. And let's pause right there, because I'm going to tie in our last conversation to this one. Howard is an amazing institution. Amazing. They do have a computer science department.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm gonna summarize the story and I'm pretty sure everyone knows this, but it's a story that has to continue to be told because there's a lesson in it. And so Google said to Howard said to Google, you take our students, you keep them in apprenticeships, but you don't hire them. Google says, oh my gosh, let me solve that problem by creating a campus called Google West in DC. That way we have relationship. But what we realized, and the things that came out earlier this year, is that the developers and the trainers and the people that Google sent still had implicit bias against the learning and the experiences of Black students who want to work in tech and develop computer science skills so that they can compete.
Interesting.
Oh yeah, I'll send you all the studies and all the about it. But we have to be honest about these things. And so my new thing, you talk about where we are in like training and skills and retention. I think I, like the chair of the CS department at Howard and other amazing HBCU scholars who work in this space, and we'd be like, there's a pipeline here, come and get them, is that not only do we teach them computer science once we can get them into our HBCUs, those departments, right? But we teach them entrepreneurship too. And I know BIT is for technical training. I know necessarily there's not a tie-in, but it should be, because Black people are more likely to hire Black people, right? They launch a tech startup, they're looking to hire people that look like them for technical aspects of the work that they have to do. And so that is my new thing. If you're going to teach them skill sets, teach them how to build a business so they can hire people that look like you and I. Because I am not sure if I am being honest with you. And I think one day we should do some type of sampling. I mean, like across various social media platforms and our big tech companies, and really get a robust sample of experiences and really look across the board. I mean, because you can't get it from the companies, you know, they only give you what they're going to give you, but to see what experiences and how long they stayed and why they stayed and why didn't they stay. And I know that K4 has some of that work that they've been doing, and maybe even McKinsey, I'm not sure. But it is my value, and I think the savior is in saying to Black people, we're going to train you with BIT. We're going to get HBCU.VC to figure out how to get some dollars to you, right? We're going to work with organizations like Founders Gym or others to help you take your technical and grow it. And we're going to figure out how to take endowment dollars from HBCU's portfolio and fund managers and actually flow directly to your company, right? Okay. And then you have like a really thriving Black tech ecosystem where we're not always having to worry, will they hire me? Can I stay here? Do they value my identity? And I think, yeah, I'm going to stop there. Because I've done so much work, and it's just sometimes you have to figure out additional ways around the mountain. I can't keep bashing my head into it and saying, we can make this work.
You laid it out pretty succinctly, and logically, might I add, what's the problem? Why don't other people see the world like you do, I guess?
I mean, because I'm not a billionaire, man. If I was a billionaire, I'm gonna save that for our last question.
Okay, all right. So we'll come back to that. Let me move on. All right. So policy. You mentioned that you get in the weeds with respect to policy and changing policy and development policy. What challenges to policy change are there, and how do we? I guess how do we see the future? Through changes in policy. And it seems like to me, when I look at it, through, the layman's lens, it's just so much red tape. It's daunting.
But see, you're talking about, So there's a difference here. There's the bureaucratic structure of governments and all governments. And also any institution that is institutionalized has bureaucracy, which can stifle innovation. I agree with this premise. And so government doesn't make it easy for you to work with them. And it's not intentional, right? They are often, even at the national level, they're operating with some type of fund mechanism. So when you go to their website and it looks like it's from like 1990s, and it probably is really from 1990s, right? Right. But shout out to President Obama for the Digital Service Office that they need to bring back that was trying to help government to rebrand through technology and lens what it should look and experience, right? UX and all of those things. And so you have those challenges. And then also because depending on appointments, you don't know who to contact and you get it. And there are some amazing, I was a part of Camelback Ventures conference yesterday, or day before yesterday, I believe. And there is an amazing woman of color who's created a legislative map type of app that allows you to know what bills and who to contact and how, because I think she's trying to demystify the process, because it's mystified because they just don't have the time to etch it out for you. It's not intentional. Yeah. But when I think about what's currently happening, as we discussed earlier, with the infrastructure bill and with the spending bill overall, the challenge is this. It has always been the value of Black lives, operationalized in various different ways, but in policy, right? And so when I look at the landscape of communities who are least likely to have access to broadband, and also be clear, the majority of Black people live in the South. I have to keep saying this. But when I look at those who are least likely to be connected as like a part and an input into the pipeline, it is in the Black rural South. It is in Mississippi. It is in Arkansas, right? And in particular, Mississippi is the main place I want to land on this. If we can't think of federal and policy to push states who are often populated by Republican assemblies who do not value Black lives or brown lives, then we will continue to have the same systemic chronic issues. On every measure, Mississippi is at the bottom, but it's one of our most populous states that populate Black people, that are populated with Black people. But we have yet to figure out why do they have the highest number of COVID deaths of Black people? Oh, because they didn't take and they don't believe that vaccines. Why do they are at the end of every public education output for achievement for Black kids? And so for me, as if it was in the 1960s, and when the Freedom Riders and everyone went down, and I have to crack Mississippi. Because if you crack Mississippi as it relates to technical skills, and I love the work that Michelle is doing. She's sold Park Pick. She's co-founder with Jewel Burks, right? And she's building an innovation zone in the Delta. She says, I would buy land, right? And I would force the conversation for innovation and technology here in the state of Mississippi, in the Delta in particular. The challenge is valuing. And also the challenge is us. I'm going to blame Black people.
Okay, all right.
Contrition, I'm a church girl. You got to condemn some people sometimes. And with this intentional condemnation, I'm going to simply say, we get so used to doing our own thing and being in our own organizations and growing our own businesses and looking for returns on investment that we forget that that poverty has been so real and systemic for Black people. And it shows itself in our urban cities in the South and in Detroit. And so when you say, where does the innovation or Black tech ecosystem should thrive? It should thrive in those spaces. But it takes way more work and more infrastructure dollars. So when I talk about digital equity plans coming down from this infrastructure bill, people like you should be sitting on those committees steering those dollars. But I have to get y'all to see the importance of it. Let's be clear. Facebook, Amazon, all of these big companies got federal dollars to build their tech. They got government handouts, and they still probably get it. And let's be clear, side note, Elon Musk, the evil genius himself, has gotten billions of dollars to launch satellites for internet. We don't know if it really works or not. Let's be quite clear about that. We have no understanding of it. But, they're trying to colonize space right now. But I'm just saying, things are happening. People are applying for dollars because policy is all about who gets the dollars. And we're sitting back and seeing the disparity and doing nothing because we only care about our own thing. And we don't want to work together. Let's be clear, working together is very hard in this Black tech community. I ain't gonna never lie about that one.
We talked about that offline.
But even, no. Honest, you got to be honest about these things. And so, but even with that, I still believe in the notion that we have always been what we've been waiting for. And if we can negotiate and bring everybody into the tent, those who do technical skills, because, you know, we working with y'all, we can apply for $1 million grant to figure if we could really do this together, right? And so I will always hope for future and us connecting and building, because we are all what we have. I'm sorry, I could have done so much work with non-people of color to try to make it work. And it's called, I believe that we can drive this policy and these dollars to us if we're willing to organize and also do something new.
You said a whole lot.
I did. Come on, let's get to the last question because I'm ready because I got a list.
Yeah, no, and I love the Delta, land purchasing ecosystem. And shout out to Camelback Ventures, by the way. They're one of our partners as well.
Aaron does great work, right?
Yeah. So let me just ask you this, because we got about 15 or so minutes, and the last question I have, or one of the last questions I have, is kind of a multi-parter. I already
got it written, babe. I'm here. I'm ready.
Are you ready for it? Okay. So you spend a lot of time thinking about, advocating for STEM and computer science, Black tech ecosystems. What are your dreams about the current and future Black tech workers, and what are your dreams about reimagining education to make those dreams real? And, I don't want you to answer the question based on the pandemic or profound inequalities in the space, but your love of building bright tech futures for Black people in this country.
I think every question we do should always end with dreaming. It has been, scholars like Robin Kelley would call it, the radical Black imagination has been what has sustained Black people through the most austere and demoralizing racial experiences in this country. We have always imagined ourselves free, even when we weren't. And so for me, when I think about what would a Black tech ecosystem future look like? What would BIT look like in the next 100 years? I'm going to start at the beginning. I would say that BIT would receive federal dollars from the U.S. Department of Bureau of Labor Statistics in the apprenticeship program to really scale your work. And they're having conversations now about this, Dennis. There are dollars there, right, to scale your work across the country. That would be the first thing. The second thing I would say, and I'm going to push on y'all a little bit because if I love you, I am honest with you. I think BIT should also not only focus on those who are currently in the pipeline, are out and trying to figure out their next moves and getting the social supports and those things, but we need transgenerational training experiences. That means not only are your technical people in the room that are trying to figure out their next moves, but you have their aunties and their nieces and their nephews, and they're with you all learning code and technical skills. We have always had collaborative learning experiences. And I will always hold up the model of the 1960s Freedom School movement. In order to break Jim Crow in the South, in Mississippi, they said not only did we have to teach them about voting, we had to teach them to read. And so you had mamas and daddies and students all in one space learning because we don't have the privileges to focus on one group. And so that would be a dream of mine. A second dream, yet again, is I believe that even in the negative experiences that I've had with working with some people in our community, it is still life-giving for us to figure out how to heal, how to forgive, and how to grow each other, right? I am fundamentally believing, and this is not some pipe dream, that we are what we always needed, and sometimes we will only be what we are and have. We will only be what we have, right? And so we have to figure out how to take pieces of the puzzle, take Camelback Ventures, who's doing amazing work, take BIT, take Founders Gym, take HBCU.BC, take Act House, take BIA, Black Innovation Alliance, take all of these amazing tech ecosystem builders for Black people and figure out a plan forward, primarily because we have the privilege to see that an automated future is coming. Let's be very clear about this. I just said Elon Musk has almost billions of satellites. He got billions of dollars from the FCC, from the federal government, to do internet, to make it accessible for people. I probably shouldn't say that because at the national level, to deal with these people. But the evil, it's just, oh. And so you talk about the world and media disinformation. How do you deconstruct code to know if Russian bots or Republican bots are trying to infiltrate to tell you as a Black person that this issue should not matter to you? I can't just, but we have to teach everybody to understand code and scripts. And so, but that takes community, because we don't necessarily have the abundance of resources like other communities. But what we do have, and what I love, that BIT models and also Camelback Ventures models, right? Y'all have figured out that not only do we need capital, that's one, but the social capital and social fabric that we need to lay upon our communities in this space is what we need. We need to know that if I needed help, I can call Dennis and he would be a sounding board for my ideas, but also for the experience I just had with my senior director at Facebook, who pretty much told me that I wasn't important, that my idea was stupid, right? And so there's like a social fabrication that y'all are doing that I think should also be institutionalized at the federal level with dollars, right? How do you build networks? How do you build hard and soft networks? You have to understand this. And lastly, my big dream is this. I gave you those immediate things we can do. Mm-hmm. The big one is that we need to figure out how to raise dollars to fund Black genius, not Black startups. See, this is my challenge here. There are a lot of funds that we develop to grow businesses, and I get the idea. We hope that people will become a unicorn business and then give back to Black people, and that's going to be great. We just need one, we need two, we need three, right? There's a pipe dream there. I'm okay with that, dreaming. But we also need to fund other types of Black tech genius. Why? Because technology and innovation is changing the world we live in. I just talked about media disinformation. I just talked about that every city is developing smart city plans and IoT devices are tracking and surveillance. How do you help communities understand that? We need to understand that the new workforce is not just technical skills, that it intersects with other disciplines. The social sciences, sociology, political science, all of these spaces are being changed, and we need so we need Black genius. I want $1 billion fund to fund Black genius. What does reparation look like? Give me 10 amazing Black geniuses in every predominantly Black city in every state, and fund them for 3 years to solve social problems with technology. That's all I want.
I love that idea.
Because in 100 years, if we have done all the things I've said, in addition to all the things I have not said, when computers begin to reflect and make this, and continuously general AI is a norm, they would see us not as deficits of code, but as human beings. We would have righted all of these fucked up data sets that teach machines to think. I mean, when we think about like the data sets and the designs and the types of research that's happening, it has never been often from the vantage point of the lived and greatness of Black people. And so when we feed these machines and these algorithms, we're feeding them really bad data. But if we do everything I said, 100 years in the future, we will not just be seen as objects of code. And so I dream. I'm a dreamer, man.
I see. And you have, I was going to say, you have the pedigree to back up the dream. So it's not just
actually. I went to Spelman.
Yeah, it is definitely something that can be put in place. It's not an abstract thought. So we got about 5 minutes, and really quick, I'm going to look and see if we got time for one question. I do see that there's a question in the Q&A. So what are some tech and school sector partner STEM career education events, et cetera, that have been most successful in terms of scalability, sustainability, impact, youth early career, et cetera? Do you have any thoughts on that?
One of the models that I love, and let me tell you, it's Black people behind this, even though white people took it and scaled it across the country. In Chicago, they have a summer of learning model, right? And it was one of the crafters of that was a digital youth network was with Akili Lee and, Dr. Nicole Pinkert doing amazing work. So about 10 years ago, they said, the way that we should understand technology, well, actually the MacArthur Foundation started about 15 or so years ago with this major study. Anyway, long story short, amazing Black researchers from the University of Chicago, and I think Dr. Nicole is now at I'm getting old. Sometimes I forget things. Long story short, they have the Summer of City learning model where they were able to take like digital media learning skills and now computer science skills and graft them across various agencies in Chicago, where they can take not only like, coding, but they can learn all types of skill sets, and it's backed by the city. It is an amazing model. It is like hundreds of nonprofits have made commitments that, number one, youth will have jobs where we pay them to learn these skills. That's the other thing we don't do, right? But then they're also teaching technical and non-technical skills, and it's backed by dollars from the city. That's an amazing model that an organization called Learning took and tried to scale, but it didn't go so well. Primarily because let me just say this to the non-people of color of this world. You may win by taking our stuff in the long run, but karma always comes around, and I'm joking. I am joking, Dennis, but no, that's a great model.
What was the name of the event again? Just for
it is Chicago Summer of Learning. And so it happens every summer, and they've actually extended throughout the year, but it's an amazing mapping of how they took the entire city of Chicago, looked at the skill sets the children needed to know, looked at the technology skills, and also Chicago leads the way when we talk about like training and learning. And also before many other cities got into this smart city mode and talking about technology and inclusion and broadband, they were already doing that type of mapping of their various neighborhoods on who had access or not. And so Chicago work in this space is pretty notable.
Nice. And just since we have a couple of minutes left, your next project, what's like the most immediate thing you're working on next?
World domination. No, I'm joking. No, but not. My next project, I'm excited because I get to flow in the world of policy and extending the working with African American churches in this space of the innovation economy, not just broadband, but educating them about all of the various tech domains that are shaping their lives. I think we have to, once again, I think the challenge is not always capital. We don't know how to translate well, right? You should be able to do all the work that you do and make sure that your aunt who's 75, that she can understand it. And it's like, why would you tell a 75-year-old that? Because she matters and she has value in this world. And she should have the ability to choose what her lived experiences are with all the available information that's available. So continuing my church work, I am a church girl, or my mosque work, or my temple work. I just think religious institutions, once again, are also anchor institutions we should think about as translating. And also, side note, they have spaces where you can go into and train people. And they actually house people, right? Every Sunday or Saturday or whatever their religious practices are, based on whatever religion they're practicing. I think they're an overlooked resource. But continuing my work there.
Bible study and Python study,
praying to Allah. I am open to all things. I just think religion has a way of taking esoteric concepts like love, death, joy, pain, and translating it, right? Because these are esoteric and people get it. And so when I say, can dry bones speak? I could be talking about automation. Can these dry bones live? That's automation to me, right? And so people can get it. It's like a translation tool.
And that we could have a whole nother conversation just on that.
Transhumanism. What does that mean, Fallon?
Oh,
what does it mean for spiritual experience? I mean, it just opens the door for us to have a level conversation with people who don't immediately have technical skill trainings, right? But give them a value space where they can talk.
Perfect. And you know what? You ended right on time. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate this conversation. Very enlightening. Always learn something when I talk to you.
I try. It's a spelling thing.
But thank you, everyone, for participating. I believe Betty wanted to get in contact with you. If anybody wants to get in contact,
I'm available to speak. Let me talk about Kanika. I branded myself. It's Sister Wilson. Or you can get in touch with Dennis. I would love to come and talk with y'all. Tell my story.
Let me know. I'll put you in contact, assuming it's appropriate. So thank you very much. And we'll see you in 5 minutes. We got a special guest coming up at 10:40. So check out Maurice Jones from the 110 Project.